Welcome to the Conquer Risk Podcast. My name is Manish Kata. This is a new series of ours called Featuring, where we are going to highlight industry leaders, and starting with one of my favorite, Penny Phillips. How you doing, Penny?
I can't believe I'm here. Happy to be here. I'm doing great.
Thanks for coming on. So one
Absolutely.
thing, let's get out of the way. We've actually never met in real life. We've interacted on Twitter quite a number of times, and actually got on the phone recently as well. Once we get back to normal life here with conferences, and more than looking forward to obviously sitting down and sharing a drink and getting to know you better. But I thought, hey, let's bring you on because we're kind of in the same space when it comes to businesses and our models and whatnot. And I thought there's a lot going on in the industry when it comes to technology, investment management. I just want to chop it up with you and see where this goes. But before we jump into that, I think, for our guests, our audience at least, quick background on you and where you came from. I know Thrivos Consulting is where I initially was introduced to you. Just lay the path down on your journey.
Sure. And I'll say I'm scared to be here because I know you could get brutal. And I think you guys are hilarious. I don't always agree with you, but I think you're hilarious. But I am a little bit nervous. So you can't come at me for anything I'm going to say because I'm going to talk about myself for a second. So I'm an industry consultant and coach. I've been in the practice management, I'll say, arena for over a decade. I've spent most of my career coaching and consulting advisors and financial institutions. And yes, before launching the RIA in January of this year, I ran a coaching business called Thrivos. We worked individually with independent advisors looking to grow and monetize. And we worked with big broker dealers looking to better train and retain advisors. So that's my journey has really been focused on the advisor experience. And I like to say the culmination of all my experiences brought me to Journey, which is my latest venture with three business partners. We're an independent RIA with offices in New Jersey and San Francisco.
So rewind a little bit. We're brutal, but listen, your Twitter says, I wrote it down. Look, real talk to combat all the BS in the industry.
Listen, you go harder than I do, but yes, we have a similar Twitter brand, I guess you could say.
So talk about that. What do you mean? What bullshit are you talking about that you want to combat?
Oh man.
Where do we start?
Yeah, where do we even start? I'll say this, and this is, it's funny because I've been anti-social. If you know me in real life, I've always said social media is terrible for humanity. But what's funny is I've sort of grown now, ironically, to be completely in love with Twitter because I found sort of this space where I can be myself and work and have fun. So yeah, it's been interesting. But when I first launched the Twitter, I wanted to just speak directly to the people I serve, advisors. I've sat in, as you have, thousands and thousands of meetings as a consultant, working in-house at corporate firms. And it just always feels like people talk to each other in this phony sort of, I remember being in meetings where I wanted to say, like, stop speaking in like a haiku. Like, just what are you trying to say? And like, talk to me like a regular human. And so, my brand when I was consulting was always like very direct. I'm not going to sell you on a specific tactic. I'm going to give you sort of the reality of what works and what doesn't work, whether that makes you want to hire me or not. And I've sort of carried that into all of my social profiles. So for me, it's just speaking directly about the reality of what it's like to, build a business or be an advisor. And I just like to leave off all the BS about like, be the CEO and build $1 billion business. I just feel like we're always selling advisors on something and not really getting to what they need from us as consultants or service providers. So that's what I mean when I say industry BS.
Yeah, I grew up Redskins fan. I guess you can't say Redskins anymore, but
Yeah.
when I was younger, the receivers, there was a group that every time they scored a touchdown, they'd get together and jump in the air and give group high fives. And that's what I feel sometimes Twitter and the industry turns out to be. And so, yes, we are brutal, but we also appreciate people at the same in the same breath, right? I just don't feel like everything is congratulations, high five. Sometimes you release products or you put out content, and frankly, there's holes in it. And I think it's important to call that out, because it's not, I mean, with advisors especially, right? I feel, and this is going to segue really greatly into the next topic here. My personal feeling is that when it comes to custodians, fintech, and also asset management, there's a large population of companies that are liars. They sell vaporware, they blow smoke up advisors, and they get away with it. And I think that's wrong, right? Especially the advisors that are vulnerable, that may not have a lot of assets to drive these conversations. And so that brings me to Journey, because you and I have talked about some of the struggles with this model. So talk to me about what Journey is, what you're trying to do, and then I want to dive into some of the challenges, because I think we're facing the same challenges as we both try to grow our companies.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's why I love my business partners, and I wouldn't have launched a venture like this without people like that who thought like me and, and sort of approached the business the same way. I saw a couple gaps in the RIA space, and I think you and I had briefly talked about this. The first was there is an obsession with, the $1 billion Merrill team, and an obsession with, M&A activity in the business. And I think as a career coach, what I noticed is we were sort of getting away from what the individual advisor and ultimately individual client, who's the person we are all supposed to be serving, what was right for them and ultimately fulfilling to them. And when I was running the coaching business, I was noticing there were a ton of really successful advisors coming out of firms like Northwestern Mutual, or maybe we're at LPL and we're saying, you know what, I don't love running the business. I feel pressure to continue on this pathway of being CEO. I don't necessarily need to take a check or need to, take money from a private equity company. And I just don't really know what my next step is. And I felt like we were missing just a tremendous opportunity to serve advisors in the way they wanted to be served, instead of trying to sell them on, whichever RIA pays the most marketing dollars to, a PR company or a headhunting company. And so I sort of spent a year really listening to the independent or insurance BD, because that's where my career started, advisor. And my partners and I came together and said, let's go to market and be real. Like, tech is not our differentiator. It's not anybody's differentiator in the RIA space. Custodial relationships are not our differentiator. They're not for everybody, because we all have access to the same stuff. So let's be real with advisors, and not just, and our model, by the way, is that we offer a full service operational outsource sort of structure and practice management outsource structure. So we run the operations of the firm. We run the P&L of the business. We hire and train and develop. Advisors can maintain 100% equity in their business if they want to, or they can sell to us at some point in time when it makes sense for them and their client. And so we said, let's double down on what the real value is, which is actually assisting advisors in building and running the business while allowing them to maintain ownership in what they've built for as long as it makes sense for them. And that's a very different approach than what anybody else is taking right now.
So what challenges are kind of cropping up there with that model? Not challenges with the model itself, but in terms of delivering your ideal experience to advisors.
Yeah, and we are a new business in terms of entity. The book of business that we launched on is an established book. Two of my partners are financial advisors, and so very in tune with their clients and what their clients need and want. I would say I've noticed a couple things. Number one, just from the enterprise standpoint, advisors have been trained very specifically to think about low payout bad, high payout good, and it means you are successful and better off than sort of everybody else. And so the hurdle of educating advisors on thinking about options in the independent space and sort of weighing the balance between payout or grid and what you're giving up and keeping in terms of, C-suite responsibilities. I wouldn't say that's been challenging, but that's been something that we've had to put a tremendous amount of focus on. Like, we are giving a payout between 50 to 65%, but as the advisor and business owner, you don't have another expense. And telling that story has been very different for advisors who've been sold on, come to LPL and you'll get a 94% payout, and that means you're the best in the business. So that's been challenging. The other piece, and we talked about this, is data integration and centralizing operations. Incredibly difficult. Data doesn't flow as well as firms tell us data flows, and it's as simple as that. So I would say those two, educating the industry and then getting a handle on how to centralize operations, has been challenging.
Yeah, I mean, listen, those two things that we're struggling with as well. We don't have the same model where advisors, we do everything for them. It's the TAMP model where we're doing the investment management, all the technology and back office. But what we're coming across now is, they like what we're doing. They like the service. They're starting to ask about the other things like, hey, who do you use for payroll? Who do you use for 401k? What's your client server look like? And so we're starting to kind of creep into that zone where some people, they like what they see and they want to kind of unleash it all over to you. And so we're kind of towing both areas right now. But yeah, with the technology, and I have these calls once every couple of weeks with different industry folks where, you sign up for these different tools and then what, right? It's still so bad when it comes to data integration and client onboarding and how to deliver that service. And frankly, I don't think anyone's motivated to solve this issue either. Everyone wants their system to be the hub of everything, and so I think they're reluctant. So, any plans to address that, or just up the service side of it to help advisors? What's kind of the initial thought process there?
We've made a commitment to, and this is, I'm passionate about this because I just think it's wild that we ask advisors to be, first of all, technically proficient in wealth management as a discipline, which is their job, right? Be up to speed on everything going on, in the economy and in the markets, and also become experts in the fintech space and figure out how to scour through different, I just think that's crazy. So part of our value proposition to advisors is this is our job to continually try to figure this out and find, best in breed. But we're very honest with our advisors, and we have been from the get-go, that technology is technology. And while you may have a better experience than you did at the broker-dealer, the insurance broker-dealer you were at, that are completely siloed, there are still a lot of challenges for us in terms of, really maximizing the use of technology. But that's something that our team is responsible for. So the advisors don't necessarily have to worry about it. In terms of addressing it, my perspective is it doesn't make sense right now to pour, $1 million into building a proprietary tech platform or dashboard of any kind. We're going to do the best we can with what we have, knowing that at the end of the day, the human experience, our relationship with the clients, our ability to surprise and delight them, our ability to think ahead and preempt any questions or challenges they may have, ultimately is what's going to keep us in business for a long time. It's not necessarily the tech. So, doing our best. I mean, we talked about it. It's not easy. Everybody wants to be the one, and it's just, we've gotten away from what the client actually wants and needs.
Yeah, there's no light at the end of the tunnel. I think you have to take. I think you just have to be happy with 80%, and then the other 20% is really service and how you implement it. I loved your point earlier. I tell people this all the time. Like, tech is not our differentiator. The right custodian relationship isn't it. It's how we implement that tech and how we help you and how we improve your day-to-day life and process and keeping it simple. And so I want to move on. I want to Christopher come back in here. I want to talk about marketing. And so if you're there, let's jump in here. And Penny,
Yeah.
you've been, I see you on LinkedIn and Twitter and putting the videos out, and to me and you, that's normal, right? It's just our day-to-day life.
Yeah.
But advisors still, to this day, struggle with marketing. They struggle with content. Why? What's the holdback for, it's almost 2022 and I still have these conversations.
Well, it's funny because I tell people, if you know, advisors start doing things like 7 years after they're supposed to do it. So like everybody's doing the direct LinkedIn DMing. And we were talking about, I remember I worked at my first foray into practice management was at New York Life and their corporate RIA. And we were telling agents who were transitioning to become advisors, like, get on LinkedIn, build your voice. And that was literally 10 years ago. So I see people cold DMing. I'm like, oh God, give it up. So I thought about this a lot. I mean, I built my brand from before the consulting business by recording videos, literally emailing it to groups of advisors and building a network of thousands of advisors over the course of 5-6 years. It's a couple things. Number one, we are and if you've been in the business for more than 5 years, folks grew up in a transactional sales oriented business where instant gratification, especially if you're talking about the insurance BD channel or wirehouse channel, it's that sort of the instant gratification, the selling something and you instantly get the person say, yes, I love this, I want to do business with you, versus what we're talking about, which is leveraging emotional intelligence, building rapport and a relationship with people through your unique voice over a period of time. Like, you have to be in it for the long haul if you're trying to build a business and a brand over social media. It's taken me 5 years to really get to a place where people are starting to sort of recognize my brand and, recognize me at a conference. But I hear advisors all the time, I did the video, I sent it out, and I didn't get any business. And it's like, that's like longing.
I've heard that exact phrase
Yeah.
so many times, and it's so frustrating.
There's that. And then the other thing is compliance has prevented people from building an authentic voice. And many advisors don't even know who they are as advisors. And that's the harsh reality, but it's the truth.
And so, Christopher, that's why I wanted to, bring you on just to jump in. You've worked with advisors your whole life, and most of all, help them market and help them with marketing. What have you seen in the last couple of years?
It's interesting because I feel like the tide is starting to turn on both compliance and technology adoption. I mean, you hit the nail on the head with advisors are 7 years behind because there were things that we were trying to do with video mediums like this 10 years ago that now I see marketers who are way more talented and way younger than me out there doing this with advisors now. And everybody's like, oh, it's brilliant. And I'm like, I tried to tell you that a decade ago and no one would listen to me.
It's wild. I tell advisors a couple things. And this was also, we talk about like the BS in the industry. I was very early on, like even 10 years ago, saying like, stop asking for referrals. And I said this on stage last week and people thought it was hilarious, but like, imagine going to a therapist and you're talking about yourself and your relationship with your mom, and the therapist says, your mom seems like she's got a lot of issues. Maybe would she be interested in, meeting with me? I tell them, like, people are being the most vulnerable with you, arguably, after the therapist and the doctor, and you're sitting there saying like, it doesn't land well. And I don't know why we don't just say that to people. Instead, we know that the people who are going to refer you business are going to do it whether you ask or not, because they're natural influencers and like to be part of something. So it's just always confused me why we're not teaching advisors how to really read people and interact. And instead we're giving them this weird language. And what we end up with is advisors who don't believe their own value and have a real problem being vulnerable. So what I say to advisors is send an email out to your clients and say to them, hey, we're going to try something new. We're going to try these videos and we want to be more modern. Like, it's okay to say that. You're a business owner.
The thing that I always tell advisors is you have a personal relationship with your clients. You have that rapport. Bring that into your communication. You've been afraid to do it all along because you got put in this box where you had to be the
Exactly.
advisor,
Exactly.
and they'll do that, stare at the blank page. I don't know how to start. I don't know who to be. I don't know who I am. And I just say, just be who you are with your clients
Exactly.
and just start talking. Because you're right, the chances of you making one video that hits a specific point that's going to get to a group of people exactly when they're having that question is slim. But if you keep talking about it, in 2 months, when somebody is looking for that question, they're going to find you because you answered it, and there you are. And I think the people that I have seen now be successful with this through video content, through podcasts, through their website, they just did exactly that. They're like, I'm just going to be the person that I am with my clients. I'm just going to start talking like I would talk to them. And then you have a content library just like
Right.
that. You just have to do it. You can't be a one and done ever.
We say there's a secret sauce. Sign up for this like there is literally no secret. You
There
have
is
to
not.
write down the questions your clients ask, answer the question on a video, send the video out. Like there's no other
Yeah,
way to do it.
there's no like sign up for my 10-week course and I'll teach you how to
No,
make a video. Turn
no.
on the camera, start talking. There you go. You just
I'm
took the
still on
course.
my laptop. You
Well,
guys
hold
do
on.
that.
I beg to differ. That secret has really helped marketing consultants make a killing. So
Of course it has.
they have used that secret. So, all right, Penny, I want to turn it back on you first. Do you have any questions for us just about the industry, life, shit talking, whatever you want to ask us?
Oh my God, tons of questions. First of all, I will, and I've DM'd both of you individually. I don't always agree with something. There's one thing in particular that I'm like, maybe I should tell him I really don't agree, but I'm not going to talk about it here.
Why not?
Yeah.
Tell me.
No,
Hey,
no,
listen. Christopher and I have been on record saying, listen, it's okay to respect the hell out of someone, but still disagree with a product or something they say, and then you can go be friends.
Are we overhyped or underhyped? And I thought it was overhyped. You guys said it was under. It was one of those. Next time I will call you out on it.
All right, call me out.
You take a very different approach. You must get a lot of heat for it. How do you come up with these ideas around these different, they're ultimately, marketing initiatives, and how do you decide whether one isn't working or is working? Because I'm sure you get a lot of as much negative feedback as you do positive. How do you make that determination?
Let me start, and then I'll
take it. And I'm a reality TV person, so I'm like,
no, I mean we feel that there's just old school Wall Street, right, is so buttoned up, and a lot of times they're full of shit, and we feel that you have to start calling people out on some of that stuff and push people to be transparent and tell the truth. And then these wild ideas come, and usually it's just Christopher and I just talking about utter nonsense, and I'll just be like, what if we just, and I'll just randomly throw something out. And if he giggles and he's like, well, I mean, I guess we could do that. And then like 3 days later, I'll get like a mock-up of a campaign, and we're just, okay, let's try it. And so my whole thought process as the firm owner is, look, if you're not talking about performance, if you're not making any promissory statements, the marketing team really operates on its own. There are zero handcuffs or shackles. I tell them the one rule is don't talk about the programs and don't talk about performance. Otherwise, knock yourself out.
Christopher, how do you also, I will say this because, and this is something that's missing at a lot of firms. You guys have both, and gals, you have both idea people and implementers. And what I see in a lot of firms is there isn't the implementer. There's the idea people, but making it come to fruition and making it visually appealing and bringing in all the that is a difficult thing to do. So you obviously have very skilled people doing that behind the scenes.
It's a combination of a couple of things that makes it work. And this is something that we've talked about quite a bit recently in some of our other podcasts, but you have to have a balance. If it's all big, silly ideas, at some point it stops being different and interesting, and people just think you're ridiculous. So for every profound industry maker and player award, fake ceremonies that we put on, you have to have daily research going out by an analyst that shows the depth that comes from this team and the importance of the work. And you have to strike that balance, because if it's all research, then you're just everybody else. And if it's all serial, at some point people are going to be like, why am I even paying attention to this anymore?
What's wrong with these people?
Well, yeah, what's wrong with these people? So you have to strike that balance. And then when I came to Potomac 2 years ago, the question that I was asked, because I was interviewed by everybody in the firm before I came on board, and they all asked me the same question: why do you want to leave the agency world and come and do this? And it's because I wanted to do the work. I had been doing the branding and the websites and all the things for firms for years and years and years, but never got to do the implementation of it and see how far you could fix things. And I wanted to do it so bad. And so now, as we've grown and have a team of 4 on the marketing staff, we have worked really hard to develop the right interaction and overlap with our team so that we're all touching part of the work but doing it efficiently. Because I never want to be the CMO that's like, let's do this thing that I have no idea how we do or how it gets done, but I've got an idea. Like, I'm never going to be that guy. And I think it's important, if you want to get into these kinds of marketing things, if you don't really understand what you're doing, it's not going to be successful.
Well, listen, and before, we never hired salespeople. We hired a marketing team first, right? Because to me, I don't need a traveling sales monkey anymore. I just need a content machine. And so Christopher and I sat down and said, we build a content machine. That's it. And advisors call me all the time, like, what's your advice? I said, you don't want to hear my advice, because my advice is to make content for 2 years, shut your mouth, do nothing else, head down, and then like rise like the phoenix and start killing it. But until then, it's just not gonna work. So
between our research, our podcast, and our blog, we put out between 8 and 9 pieces of content a week.
Yeah, that's
so
insane. Yeah, that's ridiculous. I mean, but works. Clearly it works. I also think what's interesting, because I'm fascinated with firms that have been able to build with this sort of unique approach, and you're building all on brand. Like, when people think of you folks who aren't necessarily clients or advisors of yours, we think of something specific, right? We're thinking about sort of this stuff that you're doing and the unique things, and maybe a time you made us laugh, et cetera, et cetera. I just think it's very difficult for advisors to pull something like that off. And I think what you've done uniquely is every person has a brand voice in your organization, which is something that's unique for you as well. Like I told you, I know the young lady on your team who loves soccer and is Italian. Like, everybody has built their own mini brand within a brand, and that's the end goal.
Well, here, Pat, I want to interrupt, because listen, I had this call the other day.
Right? The Martina?
Yeah, Martina.
Yeah, Martina. Yeah. And so I had a call the other day. The advisor's like, I can't do that. I'm an advisor. I'm a trusted resource for them. And I'm like, dude, we're a TAMP. Like, we manage institutional money, and we're making cereal boxes. Like, it's not about, the old. I think the old Wall Street's dead. The office with the cherry wood desk and, let me give you this presentation on paper. And times have changed, I think. But anyway, this rant can go on for days.
Yeah, there's an advisor that we had on this podcast last fall. I almost jumped in earlier when Penny, you were talking about how you think social is bad for humanity, because I did a podcast.
I still think that
last fall that was titled "Is Social Media a Waste of Time?" And I had 5 different guests on, and we talked about it. But one of them was an advisor, and I think it was like a month ago. He emailed Manish and I, and it was like, I took a really big chance with one of my podcast episodes, and I got close to like industry gossip like he went hard at something, which is not something he would have ever done prior, but he decided to go for it. And he said he got a bigger response out of just his willingness to be open, truthful, and vulnerable about that one episode than hardly anything. And I think that speaks volumes. It's just about being willing to be vulnerable and speak your mind.
And actually, I forgot what I was going to say before, so I made something else up. But this is actually what I was going to say. We are in, and not many firms are paying attention to this. We can't underestimate the power of creating community and making people feel like they're part of something that's bigger than them / sticking it to the man. I mean, look at Reddit, 11 million users on Wall Street Bets, and look at the GameStop drama, which I've talked about ad nauseum, because it wasn't about GameStop. It was about what technology and these platforms, Robinhood, Reddit, whatever, have created. It's given people the ability to, link up with people who feel the same way as them and rail against somebody they feel is, doing them wrong. And I just think that is such an important concept. And institutions, and I'm not saying you need to be super opinionated, and I'm not saying that. I'm saying you have to understand the power of making people feel like they're part of an exclusive club that is direct and transparent. There's something very powerful about that, especially for next gen wealth holder.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's extremely well said. Community is exactly what draws people in, feeling like they belong to something. I personally feel that way about FinTwit. Like that's my tribe. I love to live in that space more than any other social channel. And I would never advise anybody to try and be us, like what we do here at Potomac, because we're us. You be you. When I came here, I told Manish, I was like, if we're gonna do this, I'd known you for 10 years when I came to the firm. And I said, if we're going to do this, I want to lean into who you are. I know some people love you. I know some people don't, and that's fine. But we're going to lean into that voice. And this is who we've become because we made that decision at the beginning. And you'd actually be surprised. We don't get as much negative response as you would think. I don't know if people are afraid to do it. I keep expecting it and it doesn't show up. But
I grew up with friends who would go to a bar, sit down, and literally talk shit to each other for 45 minutes straight, and that was our night out, right? And it's just like, you got to have thick skin, and people get so offended. So we want it. Like I want the feedback because it helps. So anyway, to keep this not be the longest podcast in the history of Conqueror's podcasting, I'm going to put you on the spot in case you haven't seen that we always do recommendations at the end of the podcast. It can be anything, a product, a service, something that's new in your life that's interesting. If you want me to go first while you think about it, I can. But do you have anything going on in your world?
Please go first.
Okay. Christopher, I'll give a shout out to you. This is an Ember Mug. Christopher, you want to explain it?
Yeah. So,
and the price tag, since I bought 100 of these motherfuckers.
You did. So I in every episode I have been drinking out of this coffee mug. And I'm just not a person that likes to slam coffee. Like I like to slowly enjoy it. And so this Ember Mug has a heater in it. It keeps your coffee right at 135 degrees or whatever you want. And I absolutely love it. So when we had an opportunity to do a client appreciation gift, we bought 50 of them to send out to people, and they were so immediately liked, we turned around and bought 50 more because they were requested. So yeah, Ember Mug is absolutely the way to enjoy coffee.
I love that. Well, mine was going to be a client-oriented thing as well. We did this recently for a client. I just thought this was so brilliant. It's a company that you can give them any date in time and any geographic location, and they will find what the stars look like at that specific point in time on that specific night and give you it sort of an image of it. So we did it for a client who it was their wedding anniversary. And it was this beautiful sort of image that's framed on a canvas, and we all signed it. And I thought it's called a Starry Night. I thought that was brilliant. And I talk about it all the time because I'm like, that's such a unique thing. And, clients love that kind of stuff. And I thought it was great. So yeah, that's my recent thing that I loved.
Cool.
Awesome.
Well, Penny, it's been fun. Thank you for your time, obviously. And we're going to keep connecting and hopefully see each other at conferences in the near future.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us on the podcast. Please subscribe, like, and keep the likes coming. We'll see if this can top some of the views that we've been getting on Industry Gossip. I think Penny might compete there, Christopher.
I don't know.
It's a very real possibility.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.